All right, gang, Whiplash.
Whiplash is a 2014 movie directed by Damien Chazelle and starring none other than J.K. Simmons in one of his most anger-driven roles yet. It's about a young struggling musician being pushed to the extreme by one of his teachers. The one word I'd use to describe this movie is manipulative. The characters, tone and plot all are, but in this case it's thematic, and if the movie had been more straightforward it would have suffered for it. I really don't want to say anything else before we get into the plot, so here's my last piece of advice. This movie should appeal to everyone with one counterintuitive exception. If you study music yourself, especially the drums, you might not enjoy this movie as much. Why? It's a bit like watching Ready Player One and expecting VR memes.
I have a song to show you about how much I love the Roblox. It's great.
So that being said, let's start with the plot. The movie opens straight away with our main character, Andrew Neiman, practicing drums at Schaffer Conservatory, the best school in the country. He's interrupted by the school band conductor, Terence Fletcher, and I think the scene speaks for itself.
So you know I'm looking for players.
Yes, sir.
Then why did you stop playing? Did I ask you to start playing again?
Sorry,
I asked why
misunderstood.
you stopped playing, and your version of an answer was to turn into a wind-up monkey.
He asks Neiman to show him his double time swing and just leaves. Andrew leaves Schaffer Conservatory, buys some popcorn and watches a movie with his dad. We then see him in class and he's both a loner and a drum cack, meaning he mostly just turned pages for the core drums. We see him practice a bit, then it's on to the next day's class, as the teacher's not really impressed with him. Fletcher walks in and stoically starts testing the players. When he's done, he chooses Andrew to be in the school band, practice the next day at 6 AM. Our main character gets the courage to ask the cashier from the movie theater out and then goes to sleep. He wakes up late, runs to the class, but it's empty, it starts at 9. He waits for the other students that waste no time getting their instruments ready once they arrive. He also meets first drums. Fletcher walks in, everyone's in complete silence, they start with the titular Whiplash. He hears an out-of-tune player and starts searching for the culprit. Turns out it's this kid, which I'm convinced looks like Private Piles on purpose.
There's no fucking Mars bar down there. What are you looking at? Jackson, congratulations, you're fourth chair. Metz, why are you still sitting there? Get the fuck out!
He goes out, and then...
For the record, Metz wasn't out of tune. You were, Erickson. But he didn't know. And that's bad enough.
They take a pause, and Andrew's approached by his teacher, who asks him about his upbringing.
You know, Charlie Parker became Bird because Jones threw a symbol at his head. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Listen, the key is to just relax. Gang, Whiplash. A little under tempo, okay? Neiman, just do your best. There we go.
It's now his turn to shine.
Little trouble there. Not quite my tempo. Why do you suppose I just hurled a chair at your head, Neiman? Were you rushing or were you dragging?
I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Rushing or dragging?
Rushing.
So you do know the difference! You are a worthless, friendless, faggot-lipped little piece of shit whose mommy left daddy when she figured out he wasn't Eugene O'Neill, and who is now weeping and slobbering all over my drum set like a fucking 9-year-old girl.
Start practicing harder, Neiman.
He goes home, practices until his hand bleeds, and then practices some more. We abruptly cut to his date and we see that his mind is still on the music.
When I wake.
What?
That's the name of the song.
Oh.
They then talk about what they want to do with their lives. Nicole confesses her lack of direction. Next scene, we're at a jazz competition and Fletcher speaking in the hallways to an old friend and his daughter.
Excellent. Give me 5, baby. All right. Listen up, cocksuckers! Hurry the fuck up.
He gives some last-minute direction to the band and reminds them not to lose their music sheets.
If I ever find one of these lying around again, I swear to fucking God, I will stop being so polite. Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you.
They play a song and during the intermission Andrew's handed the folder. He puts it down for a second and it vanishes. The drummer can't play without visual aids because of a medical condition, but Andrew can.
You know Whiplash by heart.
Yes, sir. Every measure.
Yeah, me too. The Schaffer Conservatory wins first place and next practice Fletcher promotes Andrew to core drums with his usual tact. Next scene is a family dinner with his aunt, uncle and cousin. The jock side of his family seem to belittle his career as a musician and Andrews get confrontational about it. The argument dies down and we cut to the next practice. He's kept late by Fletcher, who tells him he found another candidate for core drums. This guy from Andrew's class, Connelly. Much to his displeasure, he's made the core. Fletcher gets a call and when Andrew tries to confront him about his decision, he's sent away.
Okay. I said not now!
They take a break from the conservatory. On their next date, Andrew makes clear to Nicole that he has no time for her. She doesn't take his condescending tone very well. He just goes practicing. He starts getting abusive with his instruments as much as he is with his own body. Later that day at practice, Connelly is introduced very briefly. Fletcher puts on a CD, it's music from a student of his story not too dissimilar to Andrew's. A struggling musician he pushed to his limit who now seemed to have made it. The call he received that morning was about the kid dying in a car accident. Fletcher's genuinely moved by this. We now have 3 drummers, none seem to be getting it right.
We will stay here for as long as it takes until one of you faggots can play in time. Looks like that might be all night. I apologize to the musicians. Seriously, take 10, 20, a fucking hour.
Very late into the practice, it's Andrew's turn again and he seems to have made it. Fletcher starts yelling at him, throwing stuff around, the drums get sprinkled with blood and sweat, but he finally ends the part.
5 p.m. call tomorrow in Denellen. Give yourselves at least 2 hours to get there from the city this time, all right?
It's the day nothing can go wrong, and everything does. The bus wheels break, he has to rent a car and he forgets his sticks. Fletcher tells him he lost the part and he disagrees.
Yeah, like fucking hell he's playing my part.
What the fuck did you just say to me? Neiman, you lost the fucking part.
No, I didn't. Look, you can't fucking do this to me.
Can't?
I earned that part.
You never earned anything. The only reason you're a fucking core is because you misplaced a folder. The only reason you're in studio band to begin with is because I told you exactly what I'd be asking for in Nassau.
I'm in studio band because I'm the best
why don't
player.
you just back
Yo,
off,
fuck off, Johnny Utah. Turn my pages, bitch.
5:30, that's in exactly 11 minutes. My band is on stage. If your ass is not on that stool with your own fucking sticks in hand, or if you make one fucking mistake, one!
He drives to his drumsticks and back, but...
Are you okay? Yeah, I gotta get my stick. No, stay away from the car.
All bloodied, he gets on stage and starts playing. He's not in the right shape though. Fletcher stops the band and starts apologizing to the audience when Andrews tackles him.
Shit! I'll fucking kill you!
Off camera, our main character is expelled from school and is contacted by a lawyer. She represents the aforementioned kid who died in a car accident. Turns out he actually killed himself and she wants Andrew to anonymously testify against his teacher so that he might be banned from the conservatory. Andrew begrudgingly agrees, gives up on music and begins his new career at a Subway. He contemplates calling Nicole, goes for a walk and finds a bar where Fletcher's playing. He listens for a while, tries to leave undetected but fails. Unaware Andrew got him fired, he catches up with him. He also explains his behavior.
I was there to push people beyond what's expected of them. I told you that story about how Charlie Parker became Charlie Parker, right?
Joe Jones threw a symbol at his head.
Exactly. Imagine if Jones had just said, well, that's okay, Charlie. That was all right. Good job. There are no 2 words in the English language more harmful than good job.
As they're leaving, Fletcher offers him a position in an orchestra he's leading. He accepts, readies up his drum kit and calls Nicole. Turns out she already got another boyfriend. She says she tried to make it anyway. The day comes and Fletcher makes a speech on how that particular audience will grant exposure if they play well, but will remember every failure. The band's ready to play and Fletcher approaches his ex-student.
You think I'm fucking stupid? I know it was you.
We're gonna do some old standards for you, but first we're gonna start out with a new tune.
Of course, Andrew doesn't have the music. He tries his best, but only ends up making a fool out of himself. He goes off stage, hugs his dad and goes back in. Fletcher tries to address the audience and Andrew starts playing. The ex-teacher begrudgingly goes along with him. As the song goes on, Andrew seems to almost make peace with Fletcher by sheer performance. The song ends, Andrew goes for a solo, and he goes on for a while. Fletcher doesn't only follow his lead, he's even helpful for the first time in this movie. As the solo's about to end, he removes his jacket, smiles and nods, and gives the whole band the final cue. Roll credits. I can't help but sell short this finale. It's really energetic and the performance of Miles Teller is intense. Short of showing you the whole thing, there's no doing it justice. But anyway, what did we just watch? This movie disguises itself under the guise of Full Metal School of Rock. On the surface, there's nothing more to it than Gunnery Sergeant J.K. Simmons being the most violent professor that ever graced cinema. And I think that alone could have sufficed. Crazy teacher get protagonist in school band because of a hunch, accept nothing but perfection is unfair to him and at the end recognizes his talent. It would work. But Fletcher's character goes deeper than that. With the knowledge gathered in the jazz club scene, we can infer to his real motivator. He's really manipulative and goes out of his way to both give chances and humiliate our main character. When he picks Andrew instead of Connelly in the classroom, Andrew's the worst musician of the two.
Alright. That's enough of that. Just back to the core drums, please.
But he wasn't searching for talent, he was searching for drive. At the beginning of the movie, he just leaves the room after asking to see his double-time swing. In the classroom scene, he's measuring improvement.
Dude, what have you been practicing?
When he tests him, he throws a chair at his face. This is obvious symbolism.
Parker's a young kid, pretty good on the sax. Gets up to play at a cutting session. Then he fucks it up. And Jones nearly decapitates him for it.
It's easy to dismiss this as a sign of Fletcher's derangement, but it also shows the audience that his intent is to make people improve, to get his own Charlie Parker.
The truth is, Andrew, I never really had a Charlie Parker. But I tried. I actually fucking tried. And I will never apologize for how I tried.
I'd rather die drunk, broke at 34 and have people at a dinner table talk about me than live to be rich and sober at 90 and nobody remember who I was.
Sean died yesterday in a car accident. I wanted you guys to know he was a beautiful player.
I think it's implied that he's behind the disappearing music folder too. All these conveniences are of course noted by Fletcher himself when Andrews get confrontational about being late. This is also the scene where we, as audience members, are supposed to judge Fletcher as irredeemable. Despite everything Andrew went through, he keeps belittling him and even indirectly get him into a car crash, which is the way one of his students supposedly died. But the stone-cold facade Fletcher keeps for most of the movie doesn't always reflect his thoughts. He gets Andrew into the band despite his talent and he tells him his classmate will play the part because they both know he can't.
Or we can let Johnny Utah play the part. You choose.
That's my part. I'll be on your stage.
For Fletcher, 100% is not enough. Even when you're doing everything perfectly, you can always improve. So, while he did say to Andrew that he failed, we don't really hear what he has to say to the audience. And remember, Fletcher's only ever mean to his students.
Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you.
For all we know, he could have been, sorry ladies and gents, I think one of my students is about to die. On the other hand, while the movie does portray Fletcher's anger and mean spirit as useful for Andrew's development, it also portrays it as unhealthy. Throughout the movie we see Andrew get more and more aggressive toward himself, his instruments and his classmates. And let's not forget that Proto-Andrew killed himself.
But the truth was, he barely squeaked in to begin with. All right, take 10. When we get back, the squeaker's on.
Of course, the first spurt of positivity has a great effect on our main character, him gathering the courage to ask the girl out for sure, but arguably also the family dinner scene. The main character is amazingly relatable, but one aspect of the movie I'm also sure about is the relationship running parallel to the story. It does give a break from Fletcher's abuse, but it's really transparent. When things start going his way, he asks the girl out. When he starts becoming more of an asshole, he breaks up with her in a rather rude way. Finally, when at the end he gathers the courage to call her, things don't go his way, and neither do with Fletcher at the concert. I wish it was less related to the main story, but I guess it's mostly there for pacing reasons. I'm also extremely glad the film refrained from showing her in the crowd at the end. A lesser movie would have given that relationship more importance than it actually had in the plot. So, what does the final scene represent? First of all, I assume Fletcher's ruse was both a final test and a way to get back at Andrew for ruining his reputation and career. But when Andrews get back on stage and start playing, he's making 3 statements. You have no power over me, I'm a great musician whether you accept it or not, and this is your last chance at your own Charlie Parker, so play nice. And when the song's supposed to end, Andrew keeps playing, literally giving more than 100%. I enjoyed this movie a lot. There's however one aspect I can comment on. I am musically illiterate. I can tell whether the finest musical aspects of this film are genuine. When Fletcher's angered that people were playing wrong, are they? Or more importantly, are they doing the right mistakes? Hell, does Fletcher even conduct properly? I went to the internet hoping to gain musical knowledge. The only thing I feel like I've gained is chromosomes. One thing I did find out however is that it's apparently really hard to make your hands bleed just by playing the drums. But it's metaphorical, you know, sweat and blood. This is why I said it might be harder to maintain your suspension of disbelief if you play the drums too. And of course a teacher like Fletcher wouldn't go far in the real world, but again, movie? Regardless, it's a great film. It has a heart, character, the performances are amazing and it improves with multiple watches. J.K. Simmons ended up winning an Oscar for his performance and I think it's wholly deserved. Although, truth be told, this isn't his best role.
You know those Russians can't be trusted. They hate everything we stand for. Freedom, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, apple pie. Did I say freedom? Well, it's worth saying again.
Miles Teller also did amazingly as our main character, really selling the mental and physical struggles Andrew goes through. Maybe the plot is a little predictable, if not just spoiled by the romance part. The theme of seeing both mediocrity and perfectionism as villains is an original one. The film condemned both as undesirable, and although it works out for Andrew at the end, I don't think it portrays Fletcher's character in a positive light.
But is there a line? You know, maybe you go too far and you discourage the next Charlie Parker from ever becoming Charlie Parker?
No, man, no. Because the next Charlie Parker would never be discouraged.
Last month he hanged himself in his apartment.
Especially if we step out of the relationship and see the other students caught in the crossfire.
It's a medical condition.
Medical condition? What are you, fucking Sanjay Gupta? Play the goddamn music!
But it's refreshing to see a movie that doesn't point fingers and let the audience decide for itself. So, that was Whiplash. I highly recommend it even if you spoiled it with this review. J.K. Simmons' performance alone is worth the runtime, so go watch it.
Or don't. I don't give a shit.
See ya!
I can still fucking see you, mini-me!
There are no 2 words in the English language more harmful than good.
Commies.